on my computer. Chief Osborne, we good? All right. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call this August, whatever day today is, 12th meeting of the Snohomish County Fire District 4 Board of Commissioners to order. Please stand with me. Flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let the record show all three commissioners are here. Anyone have any changes or to the agenda? I would like to suggest that we move the executive session to the end, right before adjournment, so that we don't have to. Yeah. They were bored for 5 minutes. Can you imagine for 20 minutes? We're going to sit here and try to figure out what to do. So we'll put that at the end if it's okay. Yep. All right. Anything else?
I need to add item E under action items, the BCE scope for Station 43.
Yep. Is that it? Okay. Well, we have some fun stuff tonight. It's always great to welcome new people on board. Awesome to have you here, Chief.
I'd like to introduce to the board our three newest part-time firefighters. They're going to be part of class of 24-2. If all goes well, they'll finish up their training in late December and hit shift work January 1. So I'd like
Happy New Year.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Jared Fody, Eric Susi, and Tyler McLeod.
Eric, welcome.
These three recruits are going to take our firefighter oath, and I can attest they've been practicing for at least 15 minutes, hanging it, all kinds of different ways of practicing it. So
wait, but he's still got paper in his hand. You don't have it memorized?
Yeah, we didn't give him quite enough time. So, all right, gentlemen, firefighter's oath.
I do solemnly swear to uphold the ideals, expectations, values, policies, and image of Fire District 4. As a firefighter of Fire District 4, my duty is to serve the people I swear to protect, to safeguard and preserve life, health, and property against fire and other perils, and to maintain proficiency in fire service skills. I will never allow my personal feelings or danger to self deter me from my responsibilities. I will complete my duties to the best of my abilities with fairness and without prejudice. I will at all times respect the property and rights of all. I will constantly strive to achieve the objectives and ideals that the fire service instills.
Man, when the bright light's on, you guys are on.
Congratulations.
Their badge pinning will be after graduation from the academy. So we'll see everybody again, I hope. Now,
Yeah. You're welcome to stay, but the excitement level goes downhill. Just to let you know.
That was the peak.
That was pretty much the pinnacle of this evening. So thank you for coming.
You guys need to go get coffee, go to the bathroom, maybe you got an emergency.
we usually take like a 2-minute break in case you want to talk to your.
Or photo op if you need a photo op up here. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, now we will jump back to where we're supposed to be. I just don't like that. I know I'm not supposed to. We have minutes to approve. The minutes from the July 8th meeting. Any
You approve the July
minutes? Second, those minutes are approved. Now is the time of the meeting where members of the public can make comments, open public comments. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anyone that would like to speak?
Richard Flath, I'd like the board to continue to put page numbers on the packet that's sent out to the public. The packet I received did not have any page numbers on it.
Oh, I don't know if that's a thing.
So I hear that.
Yeah, it was probably just, we had to do 2 different emails, so it probably got missed by Sam, is all.
Oh,
Because it was too big to send as one.
they typically are. I didn't know if that was a thing just for us or if that went out to everybody.
Ours has page numbers. So,
I know that earlier part of this year, they all had page numbers.
I
That was
know.
very helpful.
all right.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Anything via email or telephone? No. Okay. Accounts payable and payroll. Any questions or comments there? Give me one moment, please. Oh, I remember what it was. Chief Freighter,
Yes, sir.
are we going to be held ransom by Microsoft forever?
Yes, I'm quite sure we are.
Really?
You talking about the licenses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
$16,000 a year, just to, so I can go like this.
Yeah. Everything is annual licenses, now user licenses. But they get us, we can't share them.
Right?
We can't buy the software anymore. We can just download it and have it available on the server.
Perfect.
Everything's annual license. We get
Numbers that just jump off the page at you. Like, what? How much? Yeah, that's all. Anyone else? Okay. Those are approved. Mr. Dorfman.
Okay, I originally was going to stand, but I think I know everybody and everybody knows me. Good to see you, Commissioner. A little bit about me, in case anybody doesn't know. I had 27 years in the fire service. More than half of that was in management, 8 years as a fire chief. Prior to that, 7 years as a union president. After I retired, I spent 2 years as an interim assistant general manager at a water and sewer district part-time and helped them implement some new things. I also have been consulting since 2019. I started off with a large international consulting company, and I've slowed things down and kind of just do a few things on my own. So that's a little bit about me. I appreciate the opportunity to come speak with you guys. I greatly appreciated the opportunity to do this project. Every minute of my time working with staff was absolutely enjoyable. Very responsive staff. It was truly a pleasure. Make sure I know how to advance this.
Is it on? Right.
There we go. So the purpose, and this started well over a year ago, the purpose of the study that I performed was to do several things. The first was to assess Snohomish County Fire District 4's current status and financial health. I didn't do my own analysis of response data. I kind of relied on the 2021 SOC that was performed and kind of evaluated response capabilities through that. And then I was also going to evaluate the various partnership options that might be available to Snohomish County Fire District 4. And then identify the advantages and disadvantages of each of those options. The original study, I was just to evaluate Snohomish Regional Fire and Rescues. This last year, we added South County Fire as a department that we were going to look at. And then finally, I was going to make recommendations, the most advantageous options and strategies moving forward. We'll start with kind of the summary of what I found here at Snow 4. Again, I interviewed a lot of people at Snow 4, from labor to board members, to administrative staff, to the administrative assistants. It was very clear to me that what you guys have here is a very positive and healthy culture. Everybody was more than helpful. It was really good to see. From the labor perspective, a lot of times labor relations aren't always that smooth. Here at Snow 4, I found labor to really enjoy working here. They were very concerned and wanted to be part of the process, but ultimately very happy with where the department is, where it was moving forward, some of the progress that's been made in the last couple of years. And so it was refreshing to hear from them. Looking at your service levels, you do serve a 62 square mile area with 3 stations. That's not easy to do. And I think from what I saw, you do a really good job of, concentrating your resources here in the city, and still have relatively good response times out in the more rural areas. Community risk is relatively low, not a whole lot of industry, not a whole lot of hazardous materials. So risk is relatively low for the community, for the region. I did find, and I think everybody's in agreement, that the current facilities are substandard for today's standards, but your facility replacement plan clearly will address those deficiencies. All in all, I feel Snow 4 is in a really good place. They're very financially healthy, which is a good thing. Adequate services, morale, and culture is good. It provides you the opportunity to look at your options without being impacted by necessity, financial burdens, or operational deficiencies. You're in a really good place to kind of evaluate your options and make decisions that's best for the community. So the options that I looked at was status quo, basically staying as you are, contracting for services. And I'll get into that a little deeper. Contracting for services can take many different forms and shapes, from small little contracts for services all the way to contracting for all services that the fire department might provide. Merger, and then when we talk about merger gets used quite a bit for any combination of fire departments or businesses or counties. But merger, we're specifically talking about the merging of 2 fire districts into one. Another option that was available, and something that you explored with the city of Everett, was the formation of a regional fire authority. That still could be an option that the district could look at, either with Everett or even potentially with Surfer or any of the other neighboring departments. The last option, one of the new ones that was added into the later version of the report, was possibility to annex into an established regional fire authority, which would be South County Fire. Status quo, the advantages over with staying status quo is you have control over your services and the cost. You maintain direct control over the service levels, ensuring they align with the agreements that you have with the city of Snohomish. Contracting allows you to do that because you'd be able to, or staying status quo, you'd be making the decisions based on the needs of the community and the decisions you've already made with the city. Internal decision making, obviously, as I just said, you'd be making the decisions based on your needs, specifically in the district. As I mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of progress made. Things are moving forward. Everybody feels like we were kind of stagnant for a little while, and now things are moving forward. Facilities, increased staffing levels. There's been a number of improvements that I think people are excited about. That allows you, staying status quo allows you to continue that process. Disadvantages would be there clearly might be some missed opportunities for efficiency. I'll speak specifically to Surfer. With Surfer being north and south of you, there are opportunities for resource redeployment, sharing of services, things like that, that may not be available if we stay status quo. Not that there's a whole lot of gaps in the current service level of Snow 4, but one of the things that we've talked quite a bit about was fire prevention. Since the last time I was here, the district has moved forward and filled a fire marshal's position. There may still need some assistance from higher level of expertise that might be available at Surfer or at South County Fire to assist the process as it gets going. So staying status quo, you're going to be responsible for addressing any of the gaps or deficiencies in your current operations. Contract for services, like I said, there's a lot of options that contracting can provide. The legal framework for contracting is under the Interlocal Cooperation Agreement, RCW 3934. Contract for services are very customizable. They could be for, I think you have some experience with this, contracting for vehicle maintenance like you do with Surfer. It could be contracting for GIS or incident data like you're doing with South County Fire. Or it could be as comprehensive as contracting for all services, with Surfer or South County Fire. So, the options and the scope of what you can do with contracting is very, very varied. The one positive thing about contracting compared to a merger or RFA, contracting, you can, and this is in regard to a full consolidation of all services. You can dictate the service levels in a contract, and you could say, well, I want staffing to be this at this station, this at this station. We want to provide a ladder truck downtown. We want fire prevention services. All of those things would be spelled out in the contract, and then the cost of those services would be determined. And it allows you to ensure that you would have those services that you desire. Where with a merger or annexation, after the merger and annexation, it's the decisions on service levels we made at the larger agency. And they'd be based on what's needed and for the entire agency. No agreement, pre-merger, pre-annexation agreement can tie the hands of future boards. So there's always that risk that what we think we're going to get may not be there long term. Contracting gives you a high degree of control, access to expertise. Both Surfer and South County Fire have a well-defined administrative support system. All of the support services that you would see at a larger fire department, some of those things aren't here at Snow 4. So with contracting, you can immediately access the expertise that might be available at the neighboring department. We talked about flexibility, improved service quality. As I said, accessing expertise from outside agencies can allow you to move forward with a project or a service a lot quicker than it might be if you were going to do it in-house. It also could save you time starting your own vehicle maintenance program, for example. You'd have to hire mechanics, you'd have to find a shop, you'd have to develop protocols where if it's already being done at Surfer or South County Fire, you can immediately tap into their system and be up and running much quicker. Disadvantages of contracting: loss of control to some degree. Obviously, you would define the services desired in the contract, but those services would be provided by an external contractor, and they may do things a little bit differently or maybe not exactly the way that you want them. So it does require some contract oversight, which can be time consuming, especially if we're talking contract for all services and there's really just a board of commissioners without a whole lot of staff to oversee the contract. I was working with another client, and they had a contract for services with a large fire department, and the contract, it got away from them. They weren't maintaining and they weren't monitoring the service levels. They became very dissatisfied and they chose to leave, notify that they were going to leave. And it took a year and a half to get everything back on board. And so it's not something you can just contract and kind of be hands off. The commissioners really need to be involved in monitoring and make sure that the contracting provisions are being provided as desired. One of the things that is very important, and I see it in every kind of consolidation effort, is the alignment of the culture and objectives that one agency has compared to the other. And every fire department, yes, they provide the same services, but they all do it differently and they have different cultures, and conflicts can exist between contracting agencies and the contractor. So it's really important to make sure that whoever you contract with, whether it's for a small service or for all services, that the fit is right. I'm gonna have to beg someone for the water. Should listen to you. So merger, we talked a little bit about merger. Mergers are allowed under Chapter 5206 RCW. There is a proximity requirement. It used to be that had to be an adjacent agency, and now you just have to be relatively close. So it opens the door for merging with another fire district that may not be adjacent to you. In this particular case, the only viable partner is Surfer, which is adjacent both north and south of Snow 4. Your eastern partner, smaller volunteer, more or less, really wouldn't provide you with the operational or administrative benefits that you'd be seeking from a merger with one of those districts. All assets and employees after the merger are successful, all be transferred to the merger district. So essentially, if Snow 4 decided to merge into Surfer, after the process was complete, Snow 4 would no longer exist. You would be merging into Snow 7, Surfer's legal entity. All employees and all assets would then be transferred into Snow 7. The Board of Commissioners from the two agencies would be consolidated. So initially they would start off, I think, with 10 commissioners. Surfer has 7. So we'd have 10 commissioners. And then there's a process that's delineated in the RCW that speaks to how the commissioners would be reduced down to the statutory limit of 7, which they have. Merger, obviously, opportunity for improved efficiency by eliminating redundant governance structures. There'd only be one board. There wouldn't be 2 boards. There'd be some elimination of administrative positions when you consolidate the 2 administrations. With Surfer especially, there's opportunity for enhanced operational effectiveness. Some of the things that we looked at was, centralized location of specialized equipment, MSOs, ladder trucks, technical rescue, there's a lot of potential benefits that you could see in a merger with Surfer. You would see a unified tax rate. It would establish a unified tax rate across the entire jurisdiction. It would be the tax rate that Surfer currently has, or one that's modified by Surfer's board. It would all be the same though. So whatever Surfer's current residents are paying in tax rate, that's what the Snow 4 will pay. Historically, and I go into it in the report, Surfer's tax rate is a little higher than Snow 4 when you consider operational costs. Obviously, Snow 4 has been taking the maximum, but putting money aside for capital improvements. Surfer also has capital improvement requirements. As late as I last talked to them, they didn't have a formal plan as far as how they were going to address funding their projects. Long-term stability, when two entities merge together, obviously it's a big step. There's a lot of apprehension about it going into it, as we've seen here. Fear of the unknown is present. Once mergers happen, it usually provides long-term stability for the resulting agency. That doesn't mean that there isn't cultural blending and issues that you have to deal with when you merge two entities together. I think Surfer has done a good job of recognizing it, at least the second time around, that blending of cultures isn't as easy as it may seem, and they put a lot of effort into the blending of cultures. So they have experience having done it twice. They've had Surfers essentially a product of two departments merging and then a third merging into the new merged department. So they have experience with the merger process. Disadvantages of a merger. You do have limited partner options. Snohomish Regional Fire and Rescue really the only viable candidate that you could look at for a merger. Desired service levels not guaranteed. Snow 4 has made some decisions regarding services to the city, fire prevention services. You've initiated a fire marshal and fire prevention program. It's in its infancy. You have kind of agreed to put a ladder truck downtown at some point once the station is built. Those things that you control, if you merge into another entity, decisions by that entity are going to be made for the greater good of the entire agency, just like you do for your agency. So staffing levels and services to the city may not be guaranteed. There may be some contractual requirements that you'd have to enter into on top of merging. For example, I'll give an example of that. Surfer provides fire marshal services to the cities of Lake Stevens and Monroe, and then also through a contract out to Sultan, where that's a different arrangement than what you're looking at with the city of Snohomish. So that would be one thing that you kind of have to look into and make sure that a merger wouldn't impact decisions and agreements that you've already made. Potential uneven tax impact. One of the things, and I don't necessarily see that here. You're both collecting near the $1.50 per thousand, at least in the last few years. Surfer just recently had a successful lid lift to get them back up. You did a couple of years ago. But at the end of the day, one of the things that you'd want to look at is you'd want to make sure that the cost of services is uniform from what you're currently paying and what you would pay if a merger occurred. And I think in this case, it's relatively close. The only difference is you're putting some money away for your capital improvements. So all the money that you collect isn't necessarily going towards operational expenses. one of the things I wrote in the report, I think all three agencies that I looked at, Snow 4, Surfer, and South County Fire, all have capital project needs, and I think they're all proportional. South County Fire needs to add a few stations, replace a few stations, and update quite a few surfers in that same situation. Prior to making any long-term decisions regarding a merger or annexation, you'd want to make sure that you don't fund your facilities and then merge or annex into another agency, and then you'd be helping funding capital projects at another agency. It's something you'd want to look at closely. Also, other factors that I've seen is, prior to merger or annexation, you want to make sure that your reserve funding at your department is commensurate to what your future partner has. You wouldn't want to merge into a district that doesn't have the money to pay for fire apparatus down the road, doesn't have the money to pay for vacation accrual and things that they're going to be responsible for. So those things are important to look at deeper than what I did for this project. From what I saw, other than the capital projects, I think South County Fire and Surfer are both financially very, very well positioned. I don't see any big red flags with either of those agencies. And I already talked about it. So yeah, prior to any permanent decision that regards full consolidation where you would no longer have control, you'd want to do a comprehensive financial evaluation to make sure that everybody's coming in to the partnership on equal footing, at least financially.
Is that something you offer? Sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
Is that something that you offer to do that feasibility?
We could do that. I could do that. Yes. And I've done it before, and in a couple occasions it has resulted in potential RFA falling apart because one municipality wanted to come in basically with nothing. They wanted to, here, you take over the fire department, and with that, they didn't want to provide the fire stations that they owned. They had no money for vacation accrual, no money for future apparatus, and their apparatus was at end of life. So those things identified some real red flags. So it would be important to look at that.
It's like something directly to the West House.
Yeah. All right, sorry to interrupt you.
No problem, anytime. Let's move forward. So formation of a regional fire authority, talked about this. You already went through this process, at least the initial phase of it, with the city of Everett. And I think that you saw kind of the tip of the iceberg of that process. It involves, getting together, meeting, talking about the needs, talking about solutions, and then developing and writing a RFA service plan. You didn't get that far before the city pulled out. It does allow for, and I think one of the things the union really enjoyed was they were involved in that process and they had a seat at the table. And it was something that they felt like, we can have an impact on this final decision. And I think with things that happened after that, they kind of felt like we don't have a seat at the table. Our voices aren't being heard. So I think the contrast between what was done with the city of Everett and some of the later process is something that the board should take some real consideration over, that we need to have, whatever we do, we need to have the union involved, and we need to have them as at the table and partners in this decision-making process. I have worked with multiple agencies developing a RFA plan, only to have it one occasion the city backed out, didn't want to do it based on what we put together. Another occasion it went to the voters 2 times and didn't pass either time, and they've withdrawn their efforts to form an RFA. It's down in Southwest Washington. Taxes AV is really poor, so there was some other challenges. And I've been involved in it and successful collaboration. So there's a lot of time and effort in my own department. We spent 2 years in an RFA feasibility and planning process, only to have it fall apart. Just wasn't right for the 3 partners that were looking at it. So it can be a very time-consuming process that requires a lot of effort from the board and administration and labor to pull that together. It does allow you to look at what's needed, develop new best practices, develop solutions for regional problems. It is a very good process when it's done right and when it ends in a successful formation of the RFA. It does provide one of the biggest differences in an RFA and a fire district is the flexibility with regard to governance. RFA can create a governance that's not just commissioners. They can have city council members sit on the RFA governing board. They can have fire districts. They can create their own commissioners as well. So there's a lot of flexibility, but in most cases, from what I saw, what I've seen is departments that come together and form an RFA. There's some continuity of governance that stays with the RFA, at least initially, and so it helps the transition process. Disadvantages of forming a RFA is the loss of autonomy, and that's true with any merger consolidation. One entity is going to feel like we've lost any say. We've kind of transitioned over to this larger agency. So there's always that to get over. As I've said, planning challenges, there's a significant amount of time that goes into forming an RFA, writing an RFA service plan. And it can feel like a big waste of time when one of the entities pulls out or the voters reject. So it's just something that has to be kind of thought about going into it. If there is, and it's not present in this particular case with you or with any of your potential partners, a lot of times the project I did for Aberdeen and Hoquiam, they had massive funding problems, and the RFA really didn't solve any of their funding problems. There's no additional funding mechanisms in an RFA over the fire district. So, that's what you're looking at. There's no unique avenues for additional revenues with an RFA. Forming an RFA requires voter approval of all of the voters in the entities forming the RFA. So if you were going to form an RFA with Surfer, it would require all of the voters of Surfer and all the voters of Snow 4 to approve that initiative. And I'll talk about it a little bit later. When you annex into a RFA, only the voters of Snow 4, if you're annexing into South County Fire, only the Snow 4 voters would have to approve that initiative. As you saw with the city of Everett not passing their public safety levy, it's quite a disastrous outcome for them. If you were engaging the city of Everett with a potential RFA, the results of that might be an indication that you go through all this work and effort and have it be rejected by the voters. Annexing into South County Fire, and I specifically say South County Fire because they're the only RFA that you could annex into at this point. The advantages of efficiency of the process. You don't have to go through any of the RFA planning process. They have an RFA service plan that allows them to adjust by the governing board rather than going back to the voters to approve the amendment. The other client I have is the King County Fire District 40. They're talking about annexing into the Renton RFA. Well, Renton RFA didn't do that with their service plan. They have to go back out to bring 40 in, so they have to go back out to all of the voters, which is one, it's expensive, and two, it provides some uncertainty. So with South County Fire, they're allowed to amend their service plan. If that was something that you wanted to do, you would notify them that, hey, we're interested in annexing in. There'd be a negotiation process to adjust the service plan, some of your needs and desire, your level of representation, things like that would be discussed. The plan would be amended. Once the plan's amended to your satisfaction, then you would put it, and you approve that, you'd put it in front of the voters. It could be a relatively quick process, similar to a merger.
Jim, clarification, is there a differentiation then between the proximity rule for merging fire districts?
I'm not
versus-
100% sure on that.
So we don't necessarily have to touch the RFA that we would merge into.
I'm not sure if the language for an RFA is exactly the same as it is for a fire district. Fire district, you don't have to have adjacent borders.
Right.
And that was something that came out of initiative that my fire department pushed with the legislature in Washington. So I'm not 100% sure. I don't want to say.
No, that's fine. I was just curious because you
The reason I didn't
mentioned
dig it,
Marysville, and because we don't touch them,
Yeah.
so that's what I thought.
Marysville probably you wouldn't meet the relative proximity requirement.
Oh,
They're not that close.
close enough.
Yeah.
Got it.
So South County Fire, I didn't look at that specific question because you do touch them.
Yeah.
It's, relatively short, boundary that you share, but you do touch them. So it does provide you the opportunity to look at that as an option.
Pretty sure they mirrored the language on forming an RFA with that language. So I would assume if you can form it with the adjacent, because I know that annexing in would be different.
Yeah. I just don't know, and I've been burned a couple times stating a legal opinion that ends up being, oh, well, they changed that last year, so I kind of want to be cautious about
Yeah,
that.
sure.
Brian's not listening in tonight, so I don't have him over my shoulder.
Probably can answer for you.
He would have the answer. So I talked about revising the service plan. So anything, and they're going through this process. They went through the process with Mill Creek. They're going through the process with City of Edmonds right now. So the process of revising the service plan so that it meets that entity's requirements, that's a process that you would go through. There would be tax equalization across the annex area. So just like with a merger, there has to be a uniform tax rate. You would assume South County Fire's tax rate, which I'll talk about a little bit later. South County Fire their geographic and demographic makeup is different than Snow 4. They're more densely populated, they're more well developed. So the density of AV in South County Fire is greater than it is here at Snow 4. So that's why if you look in the report, you'll see a section about relative tax rates. You see that theirs is the lowest of all the departments that I looked at the time. It's not because they're more efficient than Surfer or Snow 4 or anybody else. It has more to do with the AV density that's present in their jurisdiction. So you may look at if we merged into Surfer, their average over the last few years maybe is $1.40 per thousand, where South County Fire over the last 4 or 5 years, it's been down $1.20-ish. That has more to do with the demographics and the AV density in that jurisdiction compared to how efficiently they run the fire department. But it is a factor that's worth noting.
Would we also assume their benefit charge?
You would. So if you annexed in, and I'm going to speak to that in a minute or two. So with annexing, I think I've already said this, with annexing into South County Fire only, once their board approves, the entry of Snow 4, it would only be the voters in Snow 4 that would have to vote on that initiative. The disadvantage is same as a merger. You lose local control. Your desired service levels might not be sustained. decisions are made at, by the governing board of the larger agency. And so they may, down the road, they may find that, oh, we need resources here that more importantly than what you currently desire in the city. There can be some uncertain impacts. You brought up the benefit charge. So if you annexed in, you would assume their tax rate and their benefit charge. That would be in the ballot measure. So citizens would be voting to annex in, and there'd have to be something in the description that describes, the benefit charge as part of it. Benefit charge, we could do a whole nother conversation on the benefit charge. I have worked with the benefit charge my entire career. Both my department used the benefit charge, and I've been hired by other agencies because I have that experience in the benefit charge. I will say that South County Fire's utilization of the benefit charge is the most moderate that I've ever seen in any other agency, including my own. They collect about 10% of their revenue from the benefit charge, where, for example, my agency, I use the benefit charge to maintain level services. So as my AV and my levy revenue declined because I was only allowed to increase it by 1%, I would make up the difference with the benefit charge. So as the levy rate decreased, I would increase the benefit charge. And then when I did a lid lift, levy dollars would increase and I dropped my benefit charge down to the minimum that I needed for that year's budget. South County Fire does it a little bit differently. They've kept their benefit charge relatively flat. They just received reauthorization for 10 years utilization of the benefit charge. If you looked at my report, and it's really common, but I got the same thing from Surfer and from South County Fire. They wanted to hold their financial information a little close to the chest. In both cases, Surfer was going out for a lid lift. South County Fire was going out for benefit charge revalidation. They didn't really want me, they didn't want something to get out into the public that maybe indicated a direction they were going to go. But with South County Fire, with reauthorization for 10 years, they use the benefit charge and start increasing it, especially in light of the fact they have some significant capital facility plans that they need to fund. So unknown there. That would be something, obviously, that would be, because the benefit charge is complicated, because it's difficult to explain to the layman, it could provide some resistance by the voters to enter into a annexation when they're unsure of the impact on what the benefit charge might do. So that's something that you would want to keep in consideration. One thing that the voters would have to understand is they annex into the RFA. Let's say they do that next year. In 9 years, every 9 years, they would have to reauthorize the benefit charge because South County Fire just received that 10-year authorization. So regardless of what you did, if you annexed into South County Fire RFA, there would be every 10 years, 6 years or 10 years, that they'd have to reauthorize the benefit charge. So voters do get the opportunity to say, hey, give feedback to the board that we don't like the way that you're utilizing the benefit charge. In the 6 years, 5 years that South County Fire has used it, they've used it very moderately and very diligently. So I don't see a problem there. So you asked me to look at two potential partners. The first I looked at was Snohomish Regional Fire and Rescue. Proximity and demographics. Surfer, obviously a larger agency with adjacent service areas to the north and south. It complements Snow 4. Both agencies have similar regions. Snow 4 serves a medium-sized city surrounded by a lot of rural area. Surfer, same thing. They serve Monroe, surrounded by a lot of rural area. Lake Stevens, surrounded by a lot of rural area. So in that regard, agencies Surfer and Snow 4 are very similar in that regard. My area, I live down in Clearview, relatively rural, so very similar in makeup. Efficient deployment, there are opportunities with Surfer for Surfer to redeploy some of their assets, centrally locate important assets. They have, have service area to the north, they have service area to the south. So there could be some real benefits to both agencies if a consolidation occurred with regard to resource deployment. Might address some of Snow 4's future plans for ladder truck, rescue services, so on. Surfer's an accredited and stable, financially stable agency, well-developed administration. All the services that a large fire department would want or need are present at Surfer. They have a large administrative staff, so they have a lot of capability and access and functionality in their administrative staff. Some might say maybe it's too big. I don't know, but what you see at Surfer is similar to what you see at South County Fire as far as administrative capabilities and support services. Currently, Surfer provides vehicle maintenance. They also have the capability to assist your fire prevention program if needed, other services that they're capable of providing. Any of the services that you currently don't provide in-house, they'd be more than able to assist you with that. I left this in there. I'm not 100% sure that it's true, but when I looked at it originally, I felt like your outlying station and one of Surfer's outlying stations, there was a potential to look at maybe consolidating those two stations. And when you're able to consolidate stations, that's where you really find efficiencies, where you can free up staffing for other things like dedicated HR stuff. So I left it in. I'm not sure it's truly a possibility, but something that could be explored. Anytime that you close a station, the only thing harder than opening a new station is closing an existing one. And so if you did consolidate those two stations, there would be winners and losers. You'd have some folks that, if it was relocated in the middle, you'd have some folks that, their response times would go down. Areas that are currently served by those two stations, they might see response times go up. So it's something that if anything happened between Snow 4 and Surfer, that's something that could be looked at. I know that you are planning on upgrading or replacing that station, but it'll be the third of the three that you do. And I think that Surfer has plans to address their outlying station as well at some point, either a remodel or a replacement. Considerations, obviously, further evaluation, just like I talked about, further evaluation regarding finances, reserve funding, capital replacement obligations, cultural and philosophical issues, and differences exist between Surfer and Snow 4. That's something that you'd want to explore further. I think, I would like to see both agencies work on improving the relationship. I think that there's room for improvement. I think Surfer, although they told me they'd be interested in contract for services, they clearly would prefer a merger over contracting or formation of with the merger process. They've experienced it twice, so they would be the area experts on merging. South County Fire as a potential partner. You do share a common border separated by a large rural area, mostly farmland. I don't see the same benefit for redeployment of resources. I don't see South County Fire moving resources that would be mutually beneficial to them and to Snow 4 down into the city, for example. So there may not be that huge benefit there. South County Fire is financially healthy with a strong administration. Same thing with Surfer. They offer all the support services that you currently may not have. They offer all the same expertise that Surfer could provide in assisting you with different things. And I think there are already some examples of South County Fire assisting Snow 4. There is a positive relationship between Snow 4 and South County Fire, at least administratively. So, that's conducive to working together, and obviously things work out better and are more smooth when relationships are solid and positive. South County Fire does have, they did say that they'd be interested in contracting from small little services to full provision of service, although their past indicates they have a strong preference for their agencies to annex in rather than contract. They did that with Briar, Mount Lake Terrace, Mill Creek was an annex in, and now they've informed Edmonds that they want them to annex in. So that's clearly their preference. So wrapping this all up, my recommendations is South County or Snohomish County 4 should consider maintaining its current status while exploring efficiencies and enhanced services through interlocal cooperative agreements, first focusing on augmenting fire code, fire marshal services, and then moving to consolidating training through a consortium approach. One of the things that I experienced in my career, we were part of East Metro training. We started training with Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond, and once we started doing that, nothing created more positive interdepartment relationships than having the guys train together on a regular basis. And when I said consortium approach, each agency would put their training staff together, working together. There'd be common lesson plans, common training methods. There'd be multiple company operation training that all the departments kind of train together. It really has a positive impact and can set the table, as I've seen in my former department, for potential consolidation down the road. I also, I saw, when I did the original study, I saw the strategic plan. There was a brief section about regionalization. Based on what I heard from the union, based on what I've heard from the administration, I think there'd be a lot of benefit to re-engage that process, talk about regionalization, have a seat at the table for everybody involved, governance, administration, labor, and kind of look at where do we want to go, what do we want to do moving forward. And I think that would be a valuable process. A little bit of my rationale for full consolidation. There's a lack of unity and excitement, enthusiasm over any of the full consolidation, and that includes labor, that includes the administration, and so from my experience, when I've seen successful consolidations, everybody's pulling in the same direction. Everybody's excited about it. Unions usually have already agreed, this is how it's going to work. We're going to dovetail seniority. We're going to, do all of these things. I don't see that here yet. And so that threw up a big red flag for me that this agency's just not quite ready. You have work to do in order to pull off a full consolidation. And I think that from what I've seen, there isn't any significant gaps in your capabilities. You're moving forward. You've done a great job in the last few years of moving forward and positioning yourself financially. So that lack of unity and that lack of excitement does throw up a red flag. Labor support, I talked about that. Moving forward without labor support can cause a whole lot of grief, delays in the process, legal challenges, things that you want to avoid at all costs. The relational dynamics, and I'll speak just with Surfer, there does indicate a lack of readiness for full consolidation. That doesn't mean that effort shouldn't be taken to improve the relationship with Surfer and continue to explore possibilities of regionalization, because I think geographically it certainly makes sense. I think there's opportunities for enhancement regionally with these two agencies, but the current dynamics indicates to me that you're not ready to do that. Capital funding uncertainty, I've talked about this a little bit already. You want to make sure that whatever you do, you don't pay for your capital improvements and then jump into a situation where you're assisting and paying for another agency's. Your taxpayers don't deserve that. So that's something you want to be very careful about. Same thing with about moving into a consolidation. You want to make sure that there's equity in what you're bringing to the table. You know, that you're fully funded on your reserves, you have your vacation and sick leave accruals partially reserved for, your apparatus and capital improvements are funded, and you're on stable financial footing. As I said, and I'll close this with, it's essential as you move forward and you consider your options, it's essential that you have everybody has the opportunity to be involved in the process and have a say. It makes a huge difference when everybody's excited about the possibilities, everybody's pulling in the same direction, the union's on board, the administration's on board, there's a plan in place. There's a plan in place that shows where everybody's going to fall. I mean, these things, when we talk about these things in a department, it provides a lot of uncertainty throughout the whole agency. Administrative staff's worried about, is my job going to be secure? What's the future look like? Union has concerns. So it's really important that there's a well thought out plan. I like the strategic planning process, kind of like the RFA planning process. Even if you thought about merging with Surfer, it would be good for the agency to go through an RFA planning type process where everybody can have a seat at the table and everybody can be involved. Everybody knows what's going to happen. Everybody can feel secure over, what the next steps might bring. That ends my longer than planned presentation. Is there any other questions that haven't come up? And again, I would certainly be available at any time if you had any questions as you move through this process. Please feel free and reach out to me. We can chat.
Thank you. Anything, Frank?
No, I have nothing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's
Yeah,
been a
thank
pleasure doing work with you.
It was a pleasure working with Snow 4. I always, whenever I work with an agency, I always kind of feel like I'm part of that agency, and I kind of, pull for that agency. Never has it been like this at Snow 4. I'm really happy that I've got an opportunity to work for Snow 4, and I think you guys are doing a fantastic job, and you have wonderful people. Every time I've come into the office, it's always been greeted with a smile, and do you want a cup of coffee? And you have some really good people working here.
Done a good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to echo, I've worked with a lot of consultants, and I will be honest, I was fairly negative against consultants, and lately, since I've been here, we've worked with fantastic, and I would put Jim at the top of that. So very upholds the ethical standard in one of the utmost ways, and is a teacher as much as he has been a consultant. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Thank
You
you.
bet.
Get the lights back on, please.
Yeah, I was about ready to sleep.
Is the movie over yet?
Just kind of missing the popcorn. we need to look at amending our transport fee process, correct, Chief Frater? That,
Yes.
158. Since he just came off of 2 weeks. I will-
sorry, I didn't
That's
want to,
okay.
didn't mean to
I'll
dump
jump
that
in.
on you.
So we have updated it sporadically here and there. I think we might have done it twice since I've been chief. And kind of the best practice recommendation that came out of the fire chiefs conference was just to do it by CPI and put it in to resolution that we could just increase it every year by CPI, so we didn't have to come back on these herky-jerkies.
So just an auto reset.
Yeah, so then I sent it to Brian to write a resolution, and he said, your current resolution is just fine. You can do that if you want. I would, since we haven't done it that way under this current resolution, I think it would just be more appropriate if you want to do that to at least get a motion from you to direct us to do that, since we are kind of making a change mid-resolution. And so what you have before you, so we would be a year behind. So they recommend, the best practices would be, these rates would have been for this year, and then we would update next year's, partway through next year, because you got to get the CBI. That seems a little herky-jerky for us, and we're not that. So we will technically be a year behind, right? So we'll have what would have been 24 rates in 25 and 25 and 26 and so on, but for us, it's not a huge deal. So you have before you what would update the rates in 25 using the 24 CPI, and then we'll just keep doing that every year if you give us direction.
So always be a year behind.
Yeah, not 3%. Again, we only get about 24% of our revenue from these bills. So, we're going to be 3% behind for a year. So we're going to lose 24% of 3%.
Okay.
Not a huge amount in it. What it allows us to do is build it into our budget, start with the change on the first of the year, and it just makes a smoother process. So I can show you what the rates for the next year are as we update our budgets in October and November. We can publish those to the public, and then January 1st they would change if we went with
Would there
this.
be any advantage in doubling it 1 year so we're not a year behind?
We could. That's completely up to you guys. I just picked that because we
It's
know the CPI right now. So if you did that, we would wait until, if we use the August CPI, which we said that usually comes out in September. Yeah,
Preference to you guys.
I'm regardless. I don't think we need to capture that extra.
Because the percentage of our overall income is not that great.
My only request would be that that the board be made aware of what that increase is each year. So we had kind of a feeling for how much we're charging our constituents for
I agree.
service. Yeah.
I agree with that.
And my plan, not that I'll remember this year, but my plan would be to bring that to you. when
Receive
we-
and hope you remember.
I know, when we do the budgeting, the revenue, as we talk about the revenue for transport waivers, it'll be my intent to show you what the new rates were. Because Thad and I have to use those to give you an estimated revenue.
So do we need to re-resolve the resolution, or what do we need to do?
You just need to make a motion to adopt these rates for 25 and to direct us to update them every year through CPI.
Motion for that?
Make a motion that we adopt these, the new rates as listed, and that we review it on a yearly basis and adjust as required.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Chief Osborne,
Yes,
talk to us about the cab.
okay. Working with you, working with Chief, working with Christine, we came together with some documents, put it together for a community advisory board, the CAB, as we call it. I looked at 4 other cabs, both in-state and out-of-state, and other fire departments. Found that they were all with for whatever reason, cities, municipalities instead of fire districts, but that's what I found. I didn't necessarily like some of the makeup. It had people, for instance, from the city council, people from the fire administration on this. And my thinking, and hopefully our group thinking, will be that while there can be a liaison with the board, the community advisory board, and your board, our commission, that fire department needs to stay out of it in order to allow for open communication, open thoughts without undue influence.
Yeah, I like that.
So.
Did you have an opportunity to talk to anybody at those places on how well that works?
I got to talk to one, and it was a city in Ohio, believe it or not. And they loved their board. They were very involved. It was a small city. A whole bunch of people were involved in this thing, like 18 members.
Wow.
And that included the community members, fire department members, and members of the city administration together. They liked it because they would meet more regularly. We recommended at least quarterly meetings with the charter that we put out so far. But they would come and meet, and they would, and I quote, we talked about all kinds of stuff. And then we talked about the fire department. So it was more broad. They talked about some city business in addition to the fire department, and that was not intentional. That's just what happened at some of their meetings.
That's just the way it organically goes, because
Yes.
sometimes those conversations can significantly inform conversations about the fire department, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's all melds together, yeah. Yeah, I appreciate your work, thank you. Question? You have more?
Well, I just wanted to say we provided you with some documents, see if it had generated any questions yet at this point, before we continue on with the project.
I don't know, any comments? Actually, I have a question. So did you look inside the state and not find any
That is correct. Yeah.
Well,
I
good,
have
we'll be on the
some,
bleeding edge here.
yeah, we had some similar things, but a community advisory committee or community advisory board specifically for a fire department was hard to find around here for sure.
So we have before us a charter, and then there's also in the works an operating plan, for lack of a better term, right? To help, kind of like the governance thing that we did, to help this group kind of get their feet on the ground and guide them through what we really are expecting of them. I mean,
Yes.
charter's kind of pretty much, right? So we'll be working on that as well. Yeah, I think there's two questions.
I had some comments about the meetings that are listed in there. And I noticed you have them at the last Monday of the months, of 4 months. And you picked December. And sometimes the last Monday in December could be Christmas Eve, could be Christmas, could be New Year's Eve. So perhaps
It's time for a party.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you could have a party, yeah, that'd be, or that board could invite you. But anyway, I would think maybe look for a different, if you're looking for a Monday, maybe a different Monday would work. And then the times you listed there are just, during the daytime hours. And if people are working and so would like to be a part of that, that might be excluding them for just having it between 7 and 4. 7 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah, and our initial thought was normal business operational time for the fire district, for our operational and executive staff was the thinking going into that, but absolutely. Especially the Christmas thing, I get you, yeah. Work around holidays.
But every Monday has a holiday on it. You got, President's Day, Labor Day, Martin Luther King Day. There is not much mini
Grandparents'
Mondays.
Day, whatever.
Yeah, so we always have to move meetings because of holidays.
We'll take a look at that as we refine. Yeah.
We just ran this through the policy committee at Surfer.
The same idea?
Yeah, it might differ in the fact that the board members all are part of the group without becoming a quorum, and we have limited functional capabilities. We're kind of absorb the information, that kind of thing, and then there's always somebody going to be there that's going to take documentation and so forth. But it's all done up in Lexipol. It just hasn't been implemented. So I can certainly, if it matches up close enough, I can provide the language to Chief Osborne, probably as early as tomorrow.
That'd be great.
Oh,
Give us something more to look at.
Yeah.
Wish it was my idea, but it wasn't.
So we have before us a resolution to establish that board. And it includes this charter. Keep in mind that charters can be amended and modified, so it's not like it's cast in concrete.
With 5 yes votes from the board.
Pardon me?
With 5 yes votes from the board.
Yes. Six. So I move that we adopt this resolution and the companion charter.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your work, Chief.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to get that going. Do we have a timeline?
We don't. I think our next truly order of business is how we're going to get the word out. I hate to use the word recruit, but get the word out. And we've talked before about this, to as broad an area of our fire district and our citizens as absolutely possible.
Just blow up social media and I saw it on the website, and word of mouth is a very powerful
Newsletters that go out to all of our citizens or those addresses for sure.
So, talk to you, we wanted to bring you a recruiting and selection plan
Yes.
for you guys, and with you adopting it now, I think a start, not the selection, but the start of a 1-1 would be nice. Anything that we do full years would be nice. So that means, you would want to have a selection in December sometime, the latest, if not before. And so if we think about that, that gives us, September, October, at least to advertise, recruit, November, depending on you want to it, and then selection in November or December for a January start. If that's generally acceptable, that's what we'll kind of work on and present something to you at the next meeting as our idea. We'll start getting the word out now that we're going to do this and we're looking for interested parties, but then at the next meeting we can have a more specific, especially for the selection process. Are we going to have a special meeting? Is it going to be, how we're going to do applications? Is it going to be just interviews? So we'll have give you some ideas, and then we can decide at the next meeting if that works.
And through the various liaisons that the exec chiefs have to the community associations, right?
Correct. Now that like I said, now that we got it, we can start getting the word out tomorrow officially, and then work on what the exact selection process. We can tell everybody that it's going to be a process in the November, December timeframe for a start of January 1st if you're good, and then we'll get the details out in the next, 30 days.
Maybe pick some highlights out of the charter, do a little 8x10 glossy and hand it to somebody if they're interested, kind of thing. I'm sure you have people who can do that. We have people.
You have people right to my right.
We're going to postpone the executive session. The repair for that wonderful Ford engine motor. Anything to add, Chief,
No.
from what you've given us here?
For me, the only eye-opening thing was we're not alone. So this has happened multiple times to multiple agencies with that particular motor that's in there.
So,
It's a lemon.
And Zach, I will add that,
It's a manufacturing
yes.
defect in Ford's process.
So we made a quick switch. You know, we are going to be bringing to you, we probably would have been bringing to you an ambulance spec for bidding this month. But in the research we did with this, we decided to pivot away from that engine and that chassis and go towards a Chevy Duramax diesel because we've had so many. So we probably will have that bid to you next month, but we looked at how many problems we're having with that engine, and it's still the same engine, that we didn't feel it was smart to keep moving down that road.
Was. We just need to approve this, right?
We need to approve the purchase off, but then also so Greg has it in his line items, but we need you to do a transfer so that we can cover it out on the right line item, correct?
Can we do that all in one motion?
Yes.
Okay. I move we approve the authorization, or authorize the expenditure, and also authorize the redistribution of funds in the budget.
13,500 from 4801 to 4809.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, 4809.
Was there a second?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we have three pieces of stuff that we've been working on for a while, and they're all very significant, very important. And they're all very transitional, for lack of a better term, because strategic plans and strategic budgets by nature have to have some fluidity in them. And they can't be so sterile and so unmoving that you can't make adjustments down the road. Chief has done a great job of putting these together, and I personally would like to ask him to give us a little bit of information on the budget piece, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Let me. So this is the budget, the strategic budget that we'll be using, and this is the live version, so I can change things for you. So I got to focus one way or the other with these glasses. So I can change things for you as you want to see how it affects, and you can see, like we talked about last time, that there's a small unfavorable at the bottom. That is not that we will be going in the hole. That's just we're that much under our target reserve, which 0.72% is not significant in my mind. Especially we average a fair amount of underspend every year. We will also dial that down probably once we get into the 25 budget. We're just using estimates right now because really this should have been done at the beginning of 24. And so as 25, we will clean 25 up so that doesn't happen. And then as we get to 26, we will clean that up so that doesn't happen, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, we're staying right about that 0.7% for a few years, and then we plop out and start gaining ground again. And you want me to go through all the tabs again, Commissioner? I'm good with that if you would like, but I also don't want to bore you.
Sure.
Okay. So a good one is obviously that I want to do is the property tax. And so as we talked about last time, the reds are where right now we have scheduled in a levy lift. And so what I want to show you what we can do with this if you adopt it. This would come out, I talked to Thad, we were originally thinking November, December, but I think we need to do this in January because to get the year-end balance, reserve balances, that's really important as we get a few tabs in. And so I think the plan would be, every January, we can bring and update this for you the next year. But let's just go back here, and you can see, like I said, we're just slightly in the red for a few years, and then we go positive. But let's say you guys say, we don't want to do a EMS levy lift. We don't want to do it at all. We don't think we should ask the voters again. I can quickly just do that, and then we can go back here, and you can see the impact, right? So that 0.7 quickly grows from 0.7 to 8 to 30%. That's significant. So then what we'd have to do as a group is you would have to go and we'd have to decide how are we going to cut our expenses to match that lost revenue. So I'm just going to undo that.
Yeah, we'll do that.
So right here, like I
They
said,
can't go away.
we would run the levy at the end of 25 to begin in 26 under this plan. And we could move it out. It would, obviously if we bumped it 1 year, it would have a 1-year impact instead of a long-term impact. It has us doing a levy lift in 2030 that would match our 6-year. So basically this is going out every 6 years for a levy lift. So our last EMS levy was done in 2019 to start in 2020. And so this would be 6 years from them, and then 6 years for the general levy. I would like to get an extra year out of the EMS levy one of these times, and I was planning here, but again, as we start to do this capital funding, I don't think this is the right time to do it, right? That loss is a big hit, even 1 year on our capital funding.
What are the pros and cons of, I understand what you're saying, of offsetting them, right? So they're 3 and 3, right?
That's the only pro. So
yeah, what if you put them together?
I feel, and I would love Jim to speak, but that gets confusing for voters, right? When you run 2, do I vote on 1? Do I vote on both? Do I vote on neither? And so that's my concern about doing 2, and that's my concern about getting an extra year, is actually getting time and distance so people realize these are 2 different things, and we're not asking them anything else on that?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Well, I like to keep them separate so that there's 2 or 3 years in between. You run the risk of, the voters saying they just keep coming back for more. If they're on the same time, I think that it could be confusing, and you may risk having one approved and the other not.
Voters might think it's an either-or option. I only have to pick one.
It's kind of like when the school district ran a levy for science and tech and building on the same year. It's like, whoa, it's a big hit.
And I know, I've talked to Chief O'Brien, and I believe Surfer's evaluating something in the same time frame, and I will really work to encourage them to run at the same time we are, which would be November of 25. I do prefer the August election, and I would normally really advocate for the August election. But with 24 being a presidential election year, you get the normal drop from presidential to non-presidential, but there's also a drop from general to primary. And so I don't think we can risk going from a presidential 2024 election to a primary 25 election and risk not meeting validation. I don't know if everybody remembers, but it was just as I was getting hired, and we got our last EMS levy validated by the skin of its teeth. It was the last count of the last day of votes that got us enough votes to get it to certify. We had plenty of yes votes, but not enough votes to certify. So I would not want to risk that again, so it clearly puts it into November. Liz Loomis is always an advocate of a November one. Her and I disagree, but I'm going to have to cave to her this time. I won last time, and we did August, and it worked, but I think she's right this time. Don't tell her I said that. So that would be the plan, unless you guys. But again, we have plenty of time to talk about it. You guys would need to do a resolution probably. I don't have this coming up, but my guess is May to June. We would have to do a resolution to put it on the ballot. But I will know that here. The county will put something out shortly.
Are there other surrounding districts that, that might be agreeable to try to run at the same time besides Surfer? And I don't know if Surfer is or not, but, because it seems to me like you always get that handful of people that kind of live on borders, and they go, well, I just voted for that. No, you didn't. You were in wrong, you know. So if we could eliminate that confusion, that'd be a kind of a fun thing.
Lake Rosiger doesn't have District 16 doesn't have an EMS levy.
Okay.
We have talked about it at our meetings, and when we got the things, we are not close to Sultan or Granite Falls. I don't know if Getchell
Timing
has-
wise, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Does Getchell have an EMS levy? Do we know?
Yeah.
I haven't talked to them, do they? So I can talk to Getchell. I haven't talked to them. And South County doesn't plan on running theirs until 2027 for a 2028. And that's only like lukewarmish, not very committed, right? So I would not feel comfortable holding out to maybe, as Jim alluded to, they are unique with their FBC, and at some point, some board, some them, with the way they fund themselves, there's not much need to do an EMS levy if they just wanted to increase their fire benefit charge. There's not a need to do a bond for construction if they didn't want to. They might still want to, but I'm just saying they have so many options that being lukewarm 2 years after us is a fairly risky move for us, right? Because then that's putting us right up against our general levy, which is on a scale much more
We can
important.
postpone a year probably max.
Again, because I would rather have more years between the EMS leading up to the general than the other way, right? Because our general's far more important than our EMS. So we could do it a year. It would be, I wouldn't advise it, but that it would be doable. We would definitely have to do some cuts, but more than a year, one, gets a little bit harder financially, and then two, it starts putting us in the wrong way of time and distance between the wrong ones.
And if it fails, we'll have to do it again.
Correct. That's the other thing about not doing it in August. And so the thing about August is you can actually have it ready for November in case it fails. Obviously, this one, if it fails in November, we would be running it the next year. So we would use it later that year. And if we bump it down just a year, like you said, and it fails, now we're back into 28. And so that's why, although my initial was to bump it to get it 3 and 3, I think doing it an extra year early that way is far better than doing it a year late. It gives you some room, some distance to plan.
So do you need some direction from us?
No, I just want you on the radar. Like I said, really I'm going to budget for Liz in the budget. If you do not want to do it, then I wouldn't. But just because we budget doesn't mean we have to spend it. Really what I need is by February at the latest, January preferable, I would say I need to know if you're 70 to 80% sure so that I can kind of get Liz spinning up. Then you have to commit preferably by May. Then we're starting by May, we're going to start actually, January to May, we're kind of in the planning process of the education campaign. May, we would probably start rolling it out. So
Right.
I would like some good direction by January at the latest and some hard direction by May at the latest. And then anytime you're ready, then makes it easier for us. The sooner we know, the better.
If we wait a little while, we might be able to get a little more information about solid cost for Station 41 and 43, see if we're at least close on that, and if we're not, then we may have to do some real pencil pushing to figure out stuff.
Absolutely. And that's kind of been my push to Frank and Ralph is helping me to get the bids. What you just said is important to me. I want the bids done and opened before we talk about this much publicly.
Yeah.
2 reasons. One, what you said, but also I want construction to be started before we start educating the public, because I want to show them through our actions that we did what we said, meaning it's the general fund funding it, not the EMS levy, right? Because
Right.
if we don't start construction until August, even though we know the money's coming from this one, it's going to appear,
Yeah.
right? And so my direction to Frank and Ralph has been the bids need to be opened before we start talking about the MS levy, and we need construction before we start talking out in the public about it, so that there's a clear, again, time and space that we did what we said. We
Right.
told you the last levy is going to do this, we're doing it, before we ask you for this other thing that funds something else.
Good. Anything else, Dan? Okay. Good.
With that, you want more tabs or we're good?
We're good.
Okay. So again, if you adopt it today, we'll come back with it in January, and we'll come back with it every January. That gives us time to update the year from the budget that you adopted in October for the coming year, and then all the new fund balances in the reserve. So we start with a fresh, good information.
And then the companions to this are the strategic operating plan and the facilities plan. Do either of you guys have questions on either of those? I move that we adopt all three.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Done. Good work.
Thank you very
There's
much.
A lot of time and effort on you and staff. Wow.
Yeah, and staff, I want to appreciate staff. They did the bulk of the work.
Lots of good information here, yeah.
That's very good.
And we need to amend the scope for the low voltage contractor, correct?
Correct. As you can see, they had a cost of $26,000 and then some extras. I want to just confirm a couple things with Ralph, the project manager, but we're going to want to do some extras. So my recommendation would be approve up to $35,000 for the scope for the low voltage for Station 43. The low voltage was a bit of a challenge to get. So
That's a nice word.
yeah. So when we brought it to you first, we only did the scope for 41 because it was challenging enough. I wasn't sure how this was going to work out, so I didn't want to commit. But it has been working well. So now I want to add 43 into it. We're a little bit behind, but I kind of drug my feet on 43, so we didn't get into something we didn't want to be in.
Is that for 30, motion for that? You said for 35,000?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve up to $35,000 for the VCE bid for low voltage.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Staff reports. Can we have more lights, please? I don't like that.
Back to Lake.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
Thank you.
We'll start with Greg and work this way.
All right.
How about that?
So I wrote a whole bunch of stuff there. Any questions, I'll be happy to talk about that. Biggest thing that I want to do right now, everything that's been going on out in the community, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to Christine and our office staff. Thank you to the commissioners who have come out to the events. Thanks to our fire explorers, our chaplain program, and then our crews that covered a very, very busy kids fair for the holidays, which was tremendous. The parade, we had 4 rigs in the parade. One more than I thought we would have, so I was happy with that. And then recently, National Night Out, tremendous turnout of fire district people came down there and just out in front of our public. So thank you. Any other questions about the stuff that I put out there? Okay.
All right, I'm just going to talk real quickly about social media because I think it's germane to our conversation. Sorry, Don. Our numbers are way, way up, but that's not what I really want to talk about. I want to talk about 2 particular posts that were made. One of them was about a kitchen table, and the other one was the world on fire, as viewed by one of our crews inside of an engine. Both of those, actually the kitchen table, got more views, more likes, more integration on social media than did the world on fire, which is picked up by local and national news, that footage. And why that's interesting to me is that connection to Snohomish and the history of Snohomish. And our steamer was also in that week, and that really, really resonated with our community. Jason always talks about, the mahogany, the rich smell of mahogany in fire departments. And from the outside looking in, I've been here now a couple months, you guys have a lot of mahogany. Have a lot of mahogany to be proud of. And the community values this agency in a way that's very, very apparent. As far as what I'm doing with the fire marshal's office, I had the opportunity to have Jim take a look at my stream of consciousness board in my office. And we're kind of at that point now where we need to start making decisions on what the fire marshal's office is going to look like and how we're going to start integrating different pieces of software and policy and all of those things. As I've moved through and talked with all of my neighboring fire marshals, the one thing that's very, very important to me is to make sure that we engineer this with simplicity versus struggling with complexity over time. Simplicity for the end user, simplicity for us to make us efficient. That's kind of where I'm going. So as far as project management goes, we're going to start the process of identifying what our critical path is over the next 18 months or so, and start plugging in all of those different things, software integration, how we're going to do inspections, all those things into each one of those particular processes to get a really good idea of what that's going to look like. So moving forward, in a month or two, you guys should be seeing some product from me to give us a good idea about how this whole transition is going to take place. That's where I'm at.
Question for you.
Yes.
Sounds like you have a really good handle on the process part of it working on our end.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we with integrating with the city and easing our way into the business community in that relationship?
Well, it's interesting to ask. I've been actually starting to get some invitations to meetings. I went to both HDSA meetings last week, and that was stemmed from a comment that I made in another meeting that I was in, just about being an advocate for business. They're very interested in what's going on with this office. I mean, I think fire marshal is a scary word to a business owner, and I understand that. Again, we're there to absolutely advocate for business, but we have to advocate for all businesses. Just like our conversation, Jim was speaking to, what happens if we merge, well, we lose some of that touchstone. That's very, very important, going back to kitchen tables and steamers and stuff. I think the business community itself is very interested in so much for taking the reins of that fire marshal's office. And I think it gives us a very unique opportunity to integrate that in a way that works for Snohomish specifically, as opposed to having a larger organization that just comes in and, we're here to do the inspection, et cetera. It's got to work for this community. When I got hired and I gave my presentation, we talked about protecting the heritage of Snohomish and doing that one day at a time. A safer tomorrow starts today, and that's the take. As far as the city of Snohomish goes, in integrating there, had some really good relationships being built with both the police department, which I know doesn't have to do with the fire marshal's office, but certainly with Sherry Ireton, making those inroads in ways that are non-intrusive but cooperative, collaborative, which is one of our core values. Again, through all these events that we've been having, the Kalahia Days, doing those IOPs, just starting to form those relationships. Got a good relationships going with the building department right now. They're very open to starting an integration process. Chief Waller and I talked today about what that potentially could look like. as far as integrating, software and things like that. So that's all moving forward. It's taken me this long to get to the point where, I mean, there's a myriad of options out there as far as software and stuff, and getting to the point where I feel like I'm informed enough to, start,
Sure.
weeding out the wheat from the chaff. That's kind of where I'm at right now. So, we have a lot of platforms existing, like First View, ESO, all of those different platforms. We want to try to, as much as we can, build a system that integrates. That's kind of my, again, going back to complexity versus simplicity. Because everything I do right now, someone's going to be stuck with for a long, long time. And that's not lost on me. So, building that foundation is, I take that very, very seriously. And I felt a whole lot better after he left my office than I did beforehand, because it's a big task. So,
So what he's referencing is, I went through the same exact thing that he's going through right now. We took over fire prevention services for the 2 cities that we serve. So I was promoted and had to initiate a non-existent fire prevention program. So everything that he's feeling and all of his apprehension, I've been through that. So
I felt like he gave me a big hug. It's going to be okay.
It's going to be fine.
And DJ's done a good job of listening. He's been doing a lot of listening to all the groups, our neighbors, our stakeholders, but he's also slowed down a little bit, or not got as fast as you might maybe want. And what he's done is he's achieved some projects that the city was interested in that help us too, but he's been able to build a lot of capital by helping them on some of the things that they felt were important, that he's very good at and knowledgeable at, and although it took a little time, relatively not a lot of time. And so that's the thing that we're doing right now, is building those bridges and those relationships so that things continue to go smoothly. And I think he's doing a very good job of elevating the relationship that we've built in the last years. He's just growing on that.
Well, comprehensive and good is way more important than fast.
Yes.
So,
Agreed.
yeah. If it takes us 3 or 5 years, okay.
Well, I wouldn't know that we have that one in the ILA, but that'd be great if it was.
Seriously, because it may take some business people that long to get their head wrapped around, what do you mean I have to spend $100,000 with sprinklers in my building? It could take a while.
Right, and that's there's the 5 E's of fire prevention, and the first one being education, right? And that's really, we're in that, hey, I'm here, we do have a fire marshal, and organically, we're starting to get more and more calls in the front office. I went out and met with several different business owners who are concerned about, hey, are my fire extinguisher okay? And, et cetera, et cetera. It's starting to occur by word of mouth.
Which is good, because they've never had anyone.
Yeah.
I've been surprised at how many people are proactively asking to be inspected. Like, hey, we've never had our sprinkler system inspected. Do you guys want to do that now? It's like, cool.
Yeah.
We're getting there. I didn't expect that we would be getting calls asking us to come do inspections. So yeah, there's definitely a desire and a willingness within the community.
I know as far as HDSA is concerned, they understand the precarious nature of having a fire in the middle of
First Street.
an old brick and
We just lose the whole downtown.
Well, we're going to get a ladder truck and we're going to do a few things, but we're going to get some trench cuts put in. But yeah, I mean, it's not lost on them. Will there be some heartburn? Probably, most definitely. But again, it's all of it, not just singular piece of it. So.
Thank you.
Well,
Not covered in my ops report. You get any questions on what I did provide you? I know the wildland deployment on the hours, we're just getting those in since our members are just returning from those deployments. So
Is everybody home?
Everybody is home. Yep. I did acknowledge in there and wanted to publicly thank our labor group who did a fantastic job stepping up. At one point, we had, I think, 7 people deployed, 2 brush trucks, a tender, and the chief. And backfilling was done with really minimal complaining, minimal twisting arms. I don't believe anybody had to be forced. It was voluntarily filled. That's just something that 2-3 years ago we would not have been able to accomplish. There's
So if
just,
we can maintain it for the rest of the season.
yeah, no way. So and really the credit goes to the labor group. Greg and his wildland group and the way they're messaging out, we need to cover, it's not a BC having to, you know.
And the media stuff that I've seen is just
Yep.
on that whole thing and the pulling sets.
So it goes hand in hand, I think, all of it, but they did a great job stepping up and in the middle of summer vacations and all the public education events that Greg mentioned, everything we got going on, and we didn't have a staffing, we didn't have to brown out. Maybe for 2 hours when one crew went out, we were down for a brief moment, but for the most part, everything's been staffed, so I appreciate their hard work on that. I didn't add in my report, but we are currently running a entry-level and lateral test, and we're going to start pulling applications this month for oral boards in October, and we use national testing to at least initially to test our candidates. And just as of late last week, I didn't look them up today, we had 472 entry-level firefighter applicants, 30 entry-level firefighter medics, 20 lateral firefighter candidates, and 8 lateral firefighter medics. Some of those large numbers, those will go down. We clearly are not going to interview 472. Some of them, our process is once we pull the top scoring candidates, we send them our application, and at that point we might find out they're missing information, and so, but still overall really higher numbers than what I expected. So we should have a decent group of candidates to interview.
That's encouraging.
Come October. And then I'd like to also, and you probably, this is like a broken record, but I'd like to recognize the members that serve on our tech rescue, whether it's water or technical rescue, the rope side and confined space. We just put our first official member onto the county tech team, meaning they've got all 5 classes, Tanner, so he is actually on the county team. We have another 5 to 8 that will be done in the next 6 months. Probably 5 of them before the end of the year, and then maybe 3 more early next year, 2025. But on top of the county training that the water guys are already doing on the regional team, and on top of the tech rescue, our internal District 4 team is putting on some great training, operational level training. I would venture to guess, I bet in the last 2 years they have as many or more CE hours than probably almost anybody, unless you're instructing. There's a core group of them that are from climbing trees and taking parachutists out, simulation cars over the embankment. This quarter, the water team, phase 1 of their training was river-based operational training. They started this week on lake training. And that's all been really organically coming from the rescue. It's not me saying, hey, you have to provide this. This is them coming saying, hey, we need this operationally for our members to get up to speed, and providing the syllabus and scheduling it. So they're doing a great job.
How many people, I don't know if it's countywide, but you just talked about a countywide team. How many people are trained up in the county, and are there enough on every shift to amass
I don't know, and Troy's here, he sits on the SLPB board up until he retired as well. I don't know if we ever truly know the number, because a lot of people have got the training and it's up to each agency to update their roster. There's no longer county. They some names on there that they actually dropped their tech cert last year.
right? I mean, are there 10 or 50 or 100?
Oh, no, there's in the hundreds. In fact, at one point, not too long ago, the county was kind of messaging out, we can't take anymore. We have too many agencies that have, and it wasn't always equally distributed. So some of the
Yeah.
larger agencies may have had a lot of members, and then a smaller agency such as us would say, hey, we want to get into it, and they're like, I don't know if we have room, we have so many tech, but I think it's in the hundreds, on that.
Who coordinates that?
The regional team, the county does, and I believe Surfer, Marysville, and South County are generally the leads, and I think Everett's in there as well, but usually the larger agencies kind of coordinate the CE schedule for all the county tabs. And more? No. And then the last thing, this kind of goes with Jim's presentation. There has been some efforts in the last 3 weeks. We are meeting and talking about opportunities for our training groups between South County, Surfer, and us to, I don't want to use any words that's going to scare labor or make it seem like it's anything other than what areas can we collaborate together and make a better training product for all three agencies. And those meetings are happening as we speak.
Good.
They started about 3 weeks ago. I think we have another one at all levels. I've had a meeting with AC Lundquist and AC Isotelo. Then we've had a meeting at the next level down, which is the DCs in training and BCs in training. And then even the training captains have had their own meeting without any of us. So actual boots on the ground, people that do the training have met. So we're having different meetings at the various levels to look at what can we do to make training for all three agencies better. And I agree wholeheartedly with Jim that that's a good way to bridge some indifferences between the agencies and to break down some barriers is through training more together. And we have done, I think, a lot of good in the last year from our Pine Avenue property. We just participated, South County invited us, Surfer, Everett, other agencies for MCOs. We went up to their facility and participated in that. So I think some of those things that he identified in his report are actually in motion as we speak. We're working on those same things.
That's encouraging.
That's all I got.
Thank you. You get a buy.
Just quick things, what's that?
I said you get a buy. You haven't even been.
I threw a few things in there. There's some just new stuff, and that's what I would talk about or highlight real quick. The changes to the county investment options. It's a real early heads up from the county that that's coming in 2025. They kind of outlined what it's going to be, and Chief has already reached out and grabbed a great contact and put me in touch with them, and I'll be looking at some options for us. I had explored early on last year some options with Wells Fargo and kind of ran into a dead end, so that's encouraging. And then unclaimed properties is new to us. It's not a new requirement. We have had very little liability, I'll call it, I guess, because we only wrote small dollar checks for petty cash and advanced travel in the past, and now we've taken on a lot of things. There's a lot more potential for people not to cash those checks. So anyways, it's just a process that us and our staff is going through and establishing that, and we've just begun that this year. So that is it.
A couple things for me. The new staff is in, and true to my form, I've pretty much maxed them out in work capacity, and they've been here about a month. But they're doing great. They're learning a lot.
We clearly need to give him more to do.
Right.
So that he backs off on this.
No. Please. The last month has been a little busy. With the capital facilities coming to a head, there is even with Ralph and Frank's help, there's a lot of juggling to make sure we don't miss timelines to get all this stuff in a row. So that's taken up a tremendous amount of my time. But within that, I also have the EMS task force and a bunch of other things, but also the three-way chiefs meetings. Kind of what Jason alluded to is the training has bounced around in there. Surfer and South County started the talking, and it came up in one of our meetings and I latched onto it. And so it quickly became a three-way discussion, which I think is actually better and moving things better. They might not think so, but I do. But out of that, we have a good plan, I think, for the chiefs that we'll be integrating with you soon. So our kind of idea is to kind of do two things at the same time, meaning we're going to look at short-term things, 1 to 2 years, like the training, like what can we do now as we're planning for what would a full merger look like as we move down in the 5